This is 5.3, review of factoring. This is an optional video for my students. The red talks about checking for common monomials. So you factor out the GCF. And then once you take out the GCF, you have a few different choices. A binomial, you can use the difference of two squareds. A trinomial, you either have the T-chart method or the AC method, depending on what the leading coefficient is. And then a quadnomial is when a factor by grouping. I'm just going to go through each of these methods for you to prepare for your quiz. So method one is always factor out the GCF. So in this first question, the GCF is n. So what I'm left with is 5n minus 2. If you want to show the work over here by dividing, you can do so. So n over n. This n and n will cancel out. You're left with just 5n. And that n, then that n will cancel out with just 2. Going down the second example, the GCF in this problem is 8ab. So we would divide both terms by 8ab, 8ab. So what I'm left with, the 8's cancel, and a cancels, left with a to the 1, then the b cancels. So what I'm left with is just the a. And minus 24 divided by 8 is 3. A divided by a will cancel. B divided by b gives me minus 3b. The second method we learned is what we call the grouping method, where we have 4 terms and we want to group 2 terms and 2 terms. So I'm going to group these 2 terms and those 2 terms and see if I can get anything to divide out. If I look at grouping the first 2 and the last 2, nothing divides out. So I might want to rearrange the order of the terms. So maybe I would group 3x squared plus 3x, because I can notice that I can get a 3x out of there. And then I can group negative 2xy and negative 2y together, because I can take out a negative 2y. So my GCF of the first group is 3x. So I'm left with x plus 1. Now I take out the GCF of the second group, which is negative 2y. So I'm left with x plus 1. What will happen every time when you do the grouping method is these 2 parentheses will match up. So now my new GCF is the x plus 1, the parentheses. And now what I'm left with when I factor out is the 3x and then the minus 2y. And now it's completely factored. The next method of factoring that we talked about was method 3 is when you have 2 terms. You can factor using the difference of 2 squared, so the rule is up there. So you want to say, what is x squared as a perfect squared? Well, that's x and x. Then you can split up 16 as 4 times 4. And then y squared as y and y. Then we have a plus and the minus in the middle. Next example, 25x squared minus 9y to the 4th. Again, difference of 2 squareds. So I'm going to split up the 25x squared as 5x and 5x. Because 5x times 5x is 25x squared. Then I'll split up the 9y to the 4th as 3y squared and 3y squared. When I multiply those 2 back together, I get 9y to the 4th. And then what goes in the middle is the plus and the minus. Next example, using the T-chart. You can use this when you have a trinomial and the leading coefficient is 1. Some of you might now be doing these in your head and you're not setting up the T-chart, and that is fine with me. So you want to say, what are the factors of 30 that add to the middle term 11? So then you list off the different possibilities. Well, 6 times 5 adds to 11. So now we can split up as x, and then 6 and 5. Here's another example. Again, the leading coefficient is 1. So we split up the 20 into factors of 20 that add to 9. So 5 times 4 adds to 9. So you split it up as y, and then plus 5, plus 4. Again, you can FOIL these back out, and you'll get your original trinomial back. The last method we learned was the AC method. That's when your leading coefficient is not 1. In this case, it's 2. So we want to multiply A and C together. So 2 times 3 is 6. That is going to be your factoring in your chart. And then your adding in your chart is still going to be that middle of 7. So you say, what are the factors of 6? 6 times 1 adds to 7. So how AC works is we split up this 7x into two terms, 6x and 1x. So I'm going to keep my 2x squared and my plus 3, and then these two become my middle term, plus 6x plus 1x. If I combine those two blue terms back together, I'll get my 7x. Now I have a quadnomial that I can factor by grouping. So I'm going to group the first two and the last two. So my GCF of the first group is 2x. I'm left with x plus 3. In the second group, I can factor out a 1. I'm left with x plus 3. So my GCF of this is the parentheses x plus 3. Remember, both of those have to be the same. So my GCF is x plus 3. What I'm left with when I take those out is the 2x plus 1. Here is your review for your factoring quiz that will be tomorrow. Remember, this was an optional video for you just to prepare you for the quiz.